All right, we are back with another episode of Three Docs in a Dumpster Fire. I am Dr. Megan Babb, here with my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Rishwain and Dr. Grove.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Excited to talk about this.
Excited.
Yeah, we got a fun topic today. One of topic that's very near and dear to Dr. Grove's heart, called aging well. Do you want to explain it a little bit?
Yeah. So thank you so much, you guys, for talking about this. I'm really excited. So basically, the idea behind aging well and where it came from is that I like to do health coaching. And I think that over time in family medicine, what we learn in this profession is essentially we get to see a long time kind of take on somebody's health and what happens over time if they make various changes to their health. How do different patients put themselves in a better position for getting through a hard diagnosis or a difficult time? How do they survive through those difficult times and then thrive after something, whether it be health or, say, a divorce or the loss of a spouse or something along those lines? How do they survive these things? And basically what I started to think about and look at was, what are the characteristics that these patients who persistently have good outcomes when it comes to their health, especially as they're aging and getting up in the years, what do they have in common? And basically, how can I emulate that? Like, how can I steal from what I've learned from my patients and figure out, I'm gonna take those tips and those tricks and bring them with me on my own health journey. So basically what I was hoping you guys could do is answer a few questions from your perspective about what you've seen, in your patients. So like when you think about your healthiest patients, not just physically, but holistically, what qualities do you see in them that, they seem to have in common? Any takers for that one?
So for me, health is a continuum. And aging well is a continuum. And I think certain people, seem to age better than others. I know we always see patients where we're like, oh my God, I cannot believe your given age is your actual age because they look great or they're just thriving. And so I think for me, where I've noticed that the most is in patients who have usually a very positive outlook on life. They are active. They really focus on taking care of their body and really prioritize their health as one of the most important things that they can do. And it seems to serve them well should they have a surgery or some sort of stress in their life. They seem to rebound faster than those that perhaps just don't have as much of a positive outlook or aren't as healthy or active going into whatever the event may be.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, aside from the things that we already know to be true, like not smoking, not drinking excessively in terms of alcohol, but also the conversation that I tend to have with patients a lot is if you're not doing something at 40, you will not be able to do that thing at 50. So the important thing is to remember that if you want to be able to, run a 5K marathon, let's say, you have to be able to put in the time to do that now. This is not something that you can say like, my goal is to do that by 50. Well, if you're 44, 45 years old and you're not actively trying to achieve that in the moment, age is not going to make it any easier. And so I find that of my healthiest patients, they're prioritizing health now. They're saying, I don't want to get up and work out, or I don't want to go for that walk at the end of my day. I don't want to park, 200 feet away from the grocery store. Right. But they do it anyway. Right. And I think that is an important thing to remember, that activity and action and movement are so important to the human body, because we are not meant to be sedentary animals.
Yes.
We're just not.
Yes.
But I think that over the course of time, we find that our society has pushed conveniences to the point where that unfortunately usually takes a back seat.
Right.
Because it is easier to drive somewhere. It's usually a matter of, I've got 5 minutes to run to the grocery store, so I'm going to park as close as I can and whiz in, whiz out. One of my most interesting patients that I have, he tells me all the time that one of the things that he loves to do is he loves to stroll when he's out and about running errands. He never rushes through them. He always takes the time to stop to ask the checker, like, how was your day? What do you have going on the rest of your day? Are you here all day? Like, just having this like basic conversation, because it just slows him down. And I find that was a very interesting thing that he did. And he's, as to your point, probably one of the most happiest, positive people that I know.
Mm-hmm. That is spot on. I think what I see in today's society is we have all the information. And honestly, when I talk to patients, and I'm sure you guys too, most of our patients have a pretty good sense of what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. And there's, it is not for lack of understanding. It is really what the problem is that people often kind of experience shame or try to put pressure on themselves in order to make these changes. And that really doesn't actually work well. And so the biggest part of our job is to take, where someone is actually right now, where they want to be going and where they know they want to go, but how do you kind of span that distance of sort of where you are in your life health-wise here, what you know you should be doing, how do you actually kind of take small steps to make that happen? And that's really what Aging Well is about. And, the reason I'm passionate about doing this one-on-one with people is that we're all different, right? Like for me, you mentioned strolling, that like when I look back on the span of my life and what has been integral and important in terms of when I was doing well health-wise, excessive amounts of walking was always part of the story. Like when I lived in San Francisco and I walked to and from work, those were some steep hills, and that was really, really beneficial to me. And then over time, I found myself in a different job in a different city, no longer having that same habit, needing to incorporate mindful walking into my life. And that's really sort of what I'm talking to patients about is, how do you find what was working for you in a time in your life where you were very healthy? What were the circumstances of that? Even if your life is no longer matching those circumstances, how can we now kind of draw from that and create now another walking habit? So, now I have a walking habit where I got a puppy that obliges me to go on walks regularly. I spend that time also intentionally with my children, so they also learn, right? So really what the Age Well sort of process is about is looking at the reality of your current life circumstances, recognizing where you want to go, whether it be movement, sleep, addiction, food, stress, phones, whatever area of your life is not working as well, work being a big one, obviously. How can we sort of chip away slowly but surely at creating boundaries whereby you're protecting all of these integral aspects of your life to be healthy, for the circumstances you find yourself in, which are always changing?
I think it's hard because I was thinking about this yesterday. When you are flailing, not thriving, sort of everything goes to the wayside. Yes. And so sometimes it's really hard to know where to even start. It feels super overwhelming. Right. And I think of like health, I prioritize it into 3 buckets. One is nutrition and what we put in our body. Mm-hmm. One is our activities of daily living, socializing, hobbies that we enjoy, activity. Right. And then the third is sleep. And I know that for myself, when I'm stressed, which, all of us prioritize different things and take, for example, current events and different things more or less personally or seriously. But, it's all stress, right? It's all coming from a point of stress in some way. And when that happens to me, when I feel overwhelmed or stressed, the first thing that goes is my activity, my activities of daily living. I will come home and just want to sit on the couch and veg out and watch, my ridiculously silly shows and just kind of let it go to the wayside. And because I do that, then I'm less motivated to eat healthy. Right. And then I stay up too late. Right. And so it's this huge circle of unhealthiness, but it's all of those things combining. And so I think sometimes it's helpful, and that's why I really love your program, is that you can actually discern, where did the problem start? Mm-hmm. Like, we all know you have stress, but where do you shut down first? Yes. And then everything else that follows. Yeah. And I think for a lot of us, it's different. Mm-hmm. But I know that for me, that's I
love it. Yeah. And I think another thing that I try to work with patients on is, how do you forgive yourself for having a few days where you just need to watch whatever garbage TV show or whatever, and then slowly get back on the bandwagon, right? So I recently, 10,000 steps is one of my goals. Doing a daily meditation, one of my goals. And one of my kids recently said to me, Mom, your next goal is to practice not getting 10,000 steps or missing a meditation, because people can also become a little too fixated on, every single day has to be a high productivity day. Mm-hmm. And that is just not realistic, right? So can you give yourself 1 day, 2 days of sort of recovery behavior, or the gift of vegging, but not let it pull you down, right? And to have a kind of a way to recognize, ding, okay, I've done this 2 days in a row, and now my sleep is worse, and now I'm eating, in the ice cream aisle of my grocery store, right? These are my little alert bells that tell me I need to clean up a little bit without beating yourself up and getting down on yourself, because that is usually not helpful. So I love that. And you were going to say something.
Yeah, I love, I might have been on a podcast with Mel Robinson that I heard this, but the act of choosing not to do something is still an act.
Right.
And so I think that oftentimes, we have to also allow ourselves the opportunity to give ourselves some grace, to say, I'm overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Yes. But what I do find is that the path of least resistance doesn't always equate to the best treatment for that exhaustion or that overwhelm, right? And so this happened the last week. We're moving rooms for the kids, and my daughter is moving into a brand new room. And I came home. I was feeling very overwhelmed with a lot of things that were going on. And so my inclination was to just go upstairs and just lie on the bed. Mm-hmm. And instead I said, you know what, I'm going to go just physically be around my kids. Mm-hmm. And so my daughter was in her room, just very nicely organizing her clothes, what fit, what didn't fit. And I just laid on the ground, and she looked at me. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to be here. Yeah. And she's like, okay. And then within 30 seconds, I was up helping. Right. And then before I knew it, I had this other burst of energy. I felt a sense of calming. And so under normal circumstances, I probably I would have just gone to the room and I wouldn't have helped. I would have just laid there and been like, oh my God, today was such an exhausting day. Right. But instead I found that sometimes pulling from the kids, because they have copious amounts of energy, they're never in a deficit. Sometimes doing the thing that I don't want to do actually becomes the thing that is what's needed the most. And so it does take that moment of the 5-second rule. When you make your mind up, you have to act on it within 5 seconds. Otherwise you'll talk yourself out of it. Mm-hmm. And so it's in that moment I was like, no, I'm going to go help Liv. Mm-hmm. And I literally got myself up and went into her room and laid there for a minute and got up. But I think sometimes like giving ourselves that grace to like
100%. And that's, I mean, one of the things that I talk to people about is in any given moment, if you're under stress or not feeling great, you're experiencing one of the suboptimal emotions, which we all have. Sometimes the solution to that might be going on a run. Sometimes it might be taking a nap. Sometimes it might be, popping some popcorn with your kids and watching a movie, and to know which one is right for you in the moment. And what's fascinating is even just giving yourself the permission to recognize, like, I am having a suboptimal experience right now, that in of itself can actually morph into something beautiful. Just acknowledging, like, I'm feeling crappy. Okay. Let's give it a moment to see where this takes me. Just that acknowledgement can often turn it into something else. I really like that. And I agree. And then, why age well? I had been thinking when we were talking about all this, like maybe I should have put it as live well, because the idea behind what I'm doing should in theory work for anyone at any age, because it really is just a way of looking at your own life more objectively, seeing where your strengths are, seeing where there's room for improvement, and sort of tackling that with a loving but forward-moving intention. But I think the thing that is interesting about aging is the brain does become a bit more rigid over time. And so what I like about this program is what I'm encouraging about it is actually practicing thinking creatively. So creative problem solving. So when you no longer live in the city and get steps this way, what do you do in your next situation? In med school, I made huge flashcards and walked around, my house in circles to get steps and also achieve, the amount of studying that I needed to do. When I'm older, it might look like me walking around a duck pond with the two of you with our front wheel walkers and, you know what I mean? Talking about our lives and our experiences. It's more about the intention of making sure, like, I need walks in my life. How I'm going to make sure that's going to happen regardless of what my life looks like at this time. How am I going to get from a sprained ankle back to my walks when I have something that kind of brings me down? And then knowing where these energy management, sleep management, food, kind of keeping all of these areas of health in mind as we're living. And it's a lot of work, but I think it's that perspective of being able to take a look at your life and a look at what's going wrong and what's not and what's going right. And then tackling it and shifting and tackling it and shifting, because life is always changing. So, yeah.
So I think that what you're describing is trying to identify healthy versus unhealthy coping mechanisms for stress. Yeah. And for you, it's walking. Yeah.
Well, right. And in a society that doesn't provide any mechanisms to achieve those things, right? Like, I mean, Denmark is offering opportunities for AI and tech builders to come, and one of their incentives is like, you work here at 5:00, the office will be like barren, closed. No one will be here. Yes, because we value and we prioritize work-life balance. Yes. America does not prioritize work-life balance. And so what happens is the culture of the work epicenter of America gets kind of thrown on people in such a way where they just kind of have to fit into the mold. And that requires, for some people, a significant amount of change and a deviation from who they really are. And so if we really want to strive for a healthier country, one of the things that we have to achieve is this recognizing that, like, some people don't thrive in that kind of environment. Some people do, but others don't. Like some people need a break. Like my husband on his lunch hour, he has to get up and he goes out in the yard most days and works because he has to release that energy. But he's a state worker and now has the benefit of being able to work from home most days. But before that, it was a struggle for him because he was in a building and stuck there. And so he would go walk around downtown Sacramento and, during his lunchtime. But it's hard when the culture of our society is one that does not promote healthy behaviors or health in general.
No, for sure. And, a lot of times, screens comes up a lot in terms of something that is actively trying to suck your attention and time into it too. So there's the fight there. And you're right. Like it is stress management, but it's also kind of balancing, okay, where's my movement? Okay, now where's my food? Where's my community? Where's my purpose? And kind of keeping all of these, balls sort of in the air at the same time is, I think, what people struggle with is that they get maybe hyper focused on their food, and then their stress is out the window in terms of managing that, or they get on an exercise regimen and they're really, hyper focused there, but then they have an injury and then everything goes downhill. So sort of how to keep the juggle and the balance working is a lot of what I work with people on, and giving themselves kind of, how do you both give yourselves permission to have the body you're faced with in this moment, which may be sick, maybe injured, maybe not doing,
less than ideal, from neglect,
not your 20-year-old self anymore, right? How do you take that body, still love it, and still keep pushing it forward and keep pushing, striving and aiming for better without beating yourself up that, I'm never going to be 20 again. And kind of holding on to that forward thinking with grace and with patience. So any other thoughts that you guys wanted to bring in, like, generate like wisdom that your patients have taught you or mindsets that you think are protective over time? I know you mentioned a positive outlook. I think that's probably something we would all agree on. Or small changes that you have seen in your patients or in yourself that have had actually dramatically big benefits to you or your patients. Any stories?
I think that all of us figure out or try to figure out ways to figure out a healthy coping mechanisms. For example, when you're stressed or whatever. For me, one thing I love is Calm, the app, because I like that it offers you, based on your time or your patience, how long is this little meditation going to be? Is it based on stress? Is it based on, just kind of centering yourself? They can be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. And so even if I feel like I'm so overwhelmed that I barely have time for 3 minutes, I'll listen to it for 3 minutes and then think, I could have probably done that for 5 or 10, because it really does help you kind of calm down and find your center. So I think that trying to figure out the ways that we can, all of us can be healthy and find healthy coping mechanisms that can serve us in the future. Mel Robbins' podcast is one I love, the Let Them theory. That helped me a lot. So it's trying to find those resources that we know can help us every day as we go through life, that will help us kind of come back to our center, that I think are probably the most important. And I'm sure that's probably the main point of what Aging Well is in your program, is trying to find these like healthy outlets.
And how do you work them in? Like the idea is, how do you work them in, right? So the beginning, it might be when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is stretch, not look at your phone. Then you might add stretch and go outside and get some sun into your eyes so that you're working on your circadian rhythm, right? Then you might add having a tea outside and then thinking about your day, right? Then maybe going to check your phone, of course. It has to come in at some point, but can you creep in just these little gifts to yourself, if you will, of resetting your nervous system, of kind of keeping presence and clarity of what your goals are during the day. I loved the story of the wandering in the grocery store. Like, how can you make small, everyday life activities just a little bit nicer and a little bit more soothing to your experience, bringing purpose and relaxation to your day. So yeah, I mean, I was thinking there's a million different things that I could say of like, what's one thing that you would do to try to age well and get healthier? You've already listed it, the Calm app. Like if people, and if they want to sponsor us.
I was going to say at this point they
Just
should, because you recommend it all the time.
I love the Calm app. I love the Daily Trip with Jeff Warren in particular, where like I feel like if this was a prescription I could give to every human, just do 10 minutes a day of meditation. And the Calm app just makes it accessible. It doesn't have to be that, but it's a great entree. If everybody did that, I know for a fact that they would see benefit in their life, or stretching, or right there's a million different things that we could talk about, but
and sometimes it's making simple decisions and things like when you look at blue zones across the globe. And for those that don't know, blue zones are regions in the world that have the highest proportion of centennials. So people who live over the age of 100. And what I really loved about learning about those regions, the world, is they are purposely choosing things that sometimes are not the most convenient. So for instance, like if you look at some of these places in Italy and Japan, a lot of these individuals are choosing to sit on the floor as opposed to sitting in a chair, because the amount of effort that it takes to go from sitting on the ground to standing up actually makes a difference. Because when you look at the science behind it, it's looking at quad and hamstring strength. And so quad strength actually has been an identifiable measure of health, because if you can move, then you are more likely to live a longer life. And so I think sometimes just it doesn't have to be these, oh God, I got to get a gym membership and I have to go every day. Like, just start making different choices. And I tell people, if they're at work all day, if they're like at Intel or wherever, like get a big yoga ball, right? And like you're going to be working your core on that, or get a walking treadmill to fit underneath your desk, or get a sit-stand desk where you can stand for part of the day. Like there's subtle changes that people can make.
Stairs, park far away.
That can just start. And the thing is going back to like the habits, is that what's kind of nice about making some of these changes is that you don't need these big instrumental changes. It doesn't take much to get the brain to release dopamine. Right? And so all you need is just like something to make that dopamine change. And then that is going to then further promote more dopamine dump. And then over time, you just have a litany of or a list of accomplishments of things that you've changed in terms of behavior. And of course, it's easier said than done, but I often say that people need like a Dr. Grove in their life who like can be their cheerleader. And I tell patients like, why struggle silently? Let me help you achieve a goal. Let me help you win this race right now. And then you get to focus on all the other races that you want to on your own, but let me help you get through this race right now. And that will help propel you to like have a victory, which then in it itself is a dopamine hit.
It's exactly
that then perpetuates
it's true.
more desire.
I'm glad you brought that up. Last, thought is just usually people go for the hardest one first. And actually most of the data for behavioral change says go for the low hanging fruit. Choose the things. It's something that is easier for you to do, that has kind of a low threshold of work for you. And then make it a habit, make it so that it just is what you do, like parking further away. It's not that hard. It's very little. And just make that your new routine. So now that's just what you do and doesn't actually take any work, but you have these little dopamine hits every time you do it, where you're like, I made the decision to do this, and you're doing it. And they gain and snowball positively upon upon.
It's like the difference between saying I want to lose 100 pounds versus I want to lose 5 pounds 20 times. Right? So you lose 5 pounds once, and then you're just like, okay, I'm going to lose 5 pounds again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys remember Dr. Samuelson from residency. And I remember her saying that when she would tell smokers, one way to help them quit smoking was you just tell yourself, you wake up every morning and you say, I'm not going to have a cigarette today, but I'll have one tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then every day you repeat that mantra. And it helps get over these, what appear to be like these big hurdles into these bite-sized, tangible goals that can be achieved on a daily basis.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so hard for us to teach ourselves to do these things, but we always say, and it's true, you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. And so for all of us that feel overwhelmed and have, partners and children and jobs and everything else, it's like, these are still super small, minute changes that you can make that will help you be healthy so that you can help keep others healthy. And I think if we don't prioritize our own health, we're really not doing a service to anybody.
That's right. So I think we're going to start wrapping it up here, but thank you guys so much for your input. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we gave something, for people to reflect on and think about. And then I just wanted to add, the key piece that I want people to take home is that health and aging well is not about perfection. It's about very small, consistent, curiosity-based and loving-based kind of way of approaching your life, and taking it sort of one step at a time, one day at a time. And, I'm hopeful that we could help you in some way, or I'm sure that, there are many, many doctors out here who are would love to help you make these changes. Yes. Well, luckily we have the time to actually do it. And that's the beauty of, of our current job.
And if they have questions, they can look at the website.
Look at our website.
Because you have your comprehensive program.
That's exactly right. And I'm happy to sit down with anybody to do some work and trudge forward up the hill towards a healthier life. Yay. Download the Calm app.